Today I'll show you how to create this cool light dark mode toggle effect only using HTML and CSS. Inside of our HTML file we've linked our CSS file, and inside of HTML we'll only need one line of code, and this line of code is basically adding our checkbox right here. Now we can also give our checkbox an ID of day minus night, for example, to style it later on. And now we can already go inside of CSS. Let's give our body a width of 100%, a min minus height of 100 viewport height. So the body basically takes up all of the available space. Let's say we have display flex, justify content center, align item center to center this button. And now we have to define something for our root element. So we can say colon root, and our root defines a color minus schemes of light. So by default, the color scheme is light. Now we also want to say if our colon root colon has an element that is basically this element, so day minus night of checked, so hashtag day minus night colon checked. So if this input element is basically checked, whoops, my bad, then we want to say our color scheme to dark. So now we have a color scheme for light, and now we have a color scheme for dark defined inside of our root element. And now we can, for the background, and this is where this really gets pretty nice, for our background we can now say light minus dark and define a color for light mode and a color for dark mode. So now we can, for example, say for the light mode, let's use this color, and for the dark mode, let's use this color, for example. And now I'm going to save this, and we will get the background color for our light mode, because by default we are using light mode. If I'm going to check this checkbox though, we will have dark mode now. But obviously the checkbox looks terrible, so we will have to change that next. In order to do so, we can again start to style our hashtag day night ID. So let's say hashtag day night has a width of 225 pixels, a height of 100 pixels. Let's save that. Let's say the appearance is none, because we need to remove the default appearance. And now we can also say dash webkit minus appearance is none, and dash MOC minus appearance is none to apply support for various browsers. Now let's add a background, and now let's say our background for the light mode is basically just the light color as well. So let's say this color, and let's give it a box minus shadow of inset 5 pixels, 5 pixels, 15 pixels of blur, so x5, y5, 15 pixels blur, and RGBA for the color of 0, 0, 0, and 0.6. Let's use a border minus radius of 50 pixels, so we get round borders. And now we have this effect already. I would also appreciate a cursor of pointer, because there's a checkbox. And now let's start to give this one a circle to the left. So let's say hashtag day minus night colon after to create an after element. Let's say this one has a content that is basically an empty string. A display of block to give this a width and a height. Let's say the width is 90 pixels, so we have a height of 100 pixels and a width and a height of 90 pixels for our round cursor or round button right here. So we have 10 pixels left basically. So now what we can do is we can say this one has a background, and let's just copy this background right here, because I want to use the exact same color like so. And now I want to say the border minus radius is 50%, so we get a perfect circle. And I want to give this one a box shadow inset as well, but it will be slightly less. We will say 0.2 for this one, and we are going to remove the 5 pixels right here, so we'll say 0, 0, 15 pixels like so, and we will say blur is probably equal to 20 pixels right here. Now we need to position this button relative to the entire box. So we'll say our day night, which is the parent element to day night after element, will have a position of relative, and we will give this one a position of absolute to position this one relative to our day night container. We will say that we have top of 5 pixels and left of 5 pixels, because ultimately this here takes up a height of 90 pixels. We have 100 pixels in total, so we have 5 pixels to the top and 5 pixels to the bottom by saying top 5 pixels. And as you can see, this gives us a perfect spacing. Now, once we hover over this element, we also want to create an effect. So let's just copy this, and let's add a colon hover here. And let's say once the user hovers, we want to have left of 15 pixels. So we add 10 pixels to the left. And as you can see, now we get this effect. A transition would look a little bit better. So we say transition all 0.5 seconds of ease. We get this effect where it now eases between the transitions or between the states. And now once the user clicks this button, we also want to change the background color of the button and the color of this after element. So in order to do so, we are going to say hashtag day minus night colon checked. And this defines a background color for our checked state. So we can go up here. Let's copy this color. And let's say our background, once the button is checked, is going to be equal to this background. So now we have this background color, which looks pretty good in my opinion. Now we also need to say left, and we need 95 pixels in total because width is 90 pixels and we want to have 5 pixels of space. So we have 225 right here. We are going to subtract 95 pixels. So we'll have 230 pixels right here. So we'll have 130 pixels of gap right here. Oops, but obviously this was my bad. We need to add this to this element right here. So to the circle, so we can say hashtag day minus night colon checked colon after, and this one will get left 130 pixels. And as you can see, now this works. This one will also have the exact same background, but our back shadow will be slightly stronger to really give the right effect of 0.6, for example. And you can obviously experiment with those values a little bit. You can also say you want to have this here slightly, oh my bad, you can also say you want to have this here maybe a little bit brighter, but this is obviously up to you. Feel free to just experiment with those values. And now you can see, once we check this checkbox, we switch between light and dark mode. It would also be cool to have a hover effect once we hover over this element, because right here you can see we have a hover element, but we don't have one for our dark mode. So we can just say, let's copy this line here again. Let's remove all of those properties because they should just stay the same. And let's just add colon hover right here. So now once the user hovers, maybe we want to add 10 pixels to the right. So we say left 120 pixels. So we hover, we have this effect, we hover, we get the same effect. And as you can see, now we have this dark light mode toggle switch.